You are breaking the law right now, and your van came that way from the factory. Most van lifers have no idea that Graywater system is illegal in the state they're parked in tonight. Not because they did something wrong, not because they modified anything, because the van they bought, new or used, from a dealer with a warranty, came with a Graywater system that violates the law in over 30 U.S. states the moment it drains outside a certified dump station. And the dealer knew. They just didn't tell you. RV inspectors now say Graywater violations are exploding across high tourism camping areas. Not speeding, not noise, Graywater. And the buyers getting cited aren't doing anything reckless. They're using their vans exactly the way the builder designed them to be used. That's the trap. This isn't a technicality. This is a $500 fine on a good day, a $15,000 retrofit and compliance nightmare on a bad one. And for buyers crossing into Canada or touring Europe, it gets worse. Today we're going through exactly what the law says, where it applies, what a compliance system looks like versus a non-compliant one, and the single buying mistake that costs van lifers $10,000 to $20,000 every year. No van tours, no lifestyle content, just the information you need before you spend $30,000 to $120,000 on a vehicle that could make you a criminal in your first campsite. Smart buyers in 2026 follow one rule. Buy the compliance, not just the van. Here's what that means. Every campervan, Class B motorhome, or converted vehicle has two products inside it. The first is the vehicle, the chassis, the engine, the build. The second is the regulatory certification, the legal framework that determines where and how you can legally use that vehicle's systems. Most buyers research the first product obsessively. They compare chassis, engine specs, floor plans, solar capacity, bed configurations. They spend 200 hours on forums before they sign. Almost nobody researches the second product, and the second product is the one that determines whether your Graywater system is legal in California, whether you can access Canadian provincial parks, whether your van gets turned away at the entrance to a German nature reserve. The Graywater system is not just plumbing, it is a legal instrument. And in 2026, the gap between what builders certify and what state, provincial, and national laws actually require has never been wider. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Many dealerships don't fully understand interstate Graywater compliance either. They sell based on certification stickers because a sticker is easier to explain than environmental law. The salesperson who handed you the keys probably couldn't tell you the difference between RVIA certification and California Title 17. They weren't trained to. They were trained to close deals. That gap between what dealers know and what the law requires is where buyers lose money. Here's how to close it. Part 1. What Graywater actually is and why the definition destroys buyers. Start here because this is where the confusion begins. Graywater is wastewater from sinks, showers, and any drain that isn't the toilet. Blackwater is toilet waste. Most people know that distinction. Now here's where it gets insane. The legal definition of Graywater varies by jurisdiction, and those variations have direct consequences for how your van's system must be designed. In California, Graywater is defined under Title 17 of the California Code of Regulations. Under that definition, Graywater cannot contact the ground surface, cannot pool, cannot run off into any drainage channel, and cannot be dispersed within 100 feet of any water source. For a campervan, that means closed containment. Your Graywater goes into a tank. It stays there until you empty it at a certified dump station. Full stop. California does not care what your RVIA sticker says. RVIA certification is a construction standard. It tells you the van was built to a certain spec. It does not override California state water law. Most buyers find that out at the campground, not at the dealership. Oregon and Washington follow similar frameworks under their respective environmental quality acts. The entire Pacific coast of the United States operates under Graywater containment rules that are stricter than federal standards. Now go east. Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, these states operate under more permissive Graywater frameworks inherited from their agricultural Graywater reuse legislation. Dispersal is legal in many conditions. Distance from water sources still applies, but the closed containment requirement is less rigid. Texas, Florida, the Southeast, variable. County-level enforcement is common, which means the same van parked in two different counties in the same state can be legal in one and in violation in the other. This is the map your dealer never showed you. And this is why buying a van without understanding its Graywater system design, specifically whether it's a true closed containment system or a dispersal-capable system, is a compliance lottery.
Part 2. The 3 Graywater system types, and which one you probably have. Now this is the part dealers never explain. There are 3 Graywater system designs common in the Class B and C market. Smart buyers know the difference before they buy. Type 1. True closed containment. Graywater goes from drain to tank. Tank has a capacity, typically 15 to 25 gallons in a Class B, up to 40 gallons in a larger Class C. Tank empties only via a standard dump station fitting. No dispersal valve, no passive release mechanism, no gray water touches the ground outside a certified dump facility. A compliant closed containment setup is not complicated. One properly vented tank, one sealed valve, one legal dump connection. That's it. It's not exotic engineering. It's a decision the builder makes or doesn't make before the van leaves the factory. This is the only design that is legal across all 50 U.S. states, all Canadian provinces, and most developed European markets without modification. If your van has this system, you are protected. Your constraint is tank capacity and dump station access, not legal compliance. Type 2, dispersal-capable system. Tank plus a secondary valve or release point that allows controlled dispersal onto ground surfaces. Common in European spec builds certified under EN 1949, where dispersal under specific conditions, distance from water sources, filtration, non-protected land, is legal. This system is legal in parts of Europe. It is not legal in California, Oregon, Washington, or any U.S. national park system under current NPS Graywater management guidelines. American buyers purchasing European spec vans, gray market imports, or vans built by European manufacturers for the U.S. market need to verify specifically whether the dispersal mechanism has been disabled or replaced for U.S. compliance. Not just documented as disabled, physically verified. A valve that exists can be accidentally opened. An inspector doesn't care about your documentation if gray water is on the ground. Type 3. Undersized or non-compliant containment. This is the most dangerous category, and the one most buyers encounter without knowing it. Picture this. A retired couple from Ohio, saved for 3 years, purchased a custom conversion, looked beautiful, great reviews online, builder had a strong social media following. Graywater tank, 7 gallons. They find out the hard way on their second night. Tank is full. They're 35 miles from the nearest dump station. They crack the valve just for a second, let it drain onto the ground behind a tree. Rangers sees the moisture trail during a routine pass. $400 fine, required to vacate the site immediately. That builder never disclosed the tank size up front. The buyer never asked. That's how this mistake happens, not through recklessness, but through a question nobody thought to ask before the paperwork was signed. Improperly vented tanks create odor and pressure that lead users to crack the valve for relief. Non-standard drain fittings mean you physically cannot connect to a certified dump station, so dispersal becomes the only option. Buyers purchasing custom conversions, small builder vans, or older used Class B units put Graywater system inspection at the top of the pre-purchase checklist. Not second, not third, first. Part 3. The U.S. state-by-state reality. These next 60 seconds could save you $10,000. Stay with me. California, strictest in the nation, 0 ground dispersal, closed containment mandatory. Fines start at $250 for first offense, scale to $1,000 for repeat violations. California State Parks Rangers actively cite Graywater violations. A ranger walks up, looks under your van, sees a moisture trail from a slow dripping valve. Trip over, right there. Oregon. Oregon DEQ classifies improper graywater dispersal as a water quality violation. Fines up to $700 per incident. State park enforcement is active, particularly in coastal and mountain recreation areas. Washington. Similar framework to Oregon. Emphasis on protection of salmon habitat watersheds means graywater violations in certain zones carry elevated penalties. Colorado. more permissive outside designated recreation areas, but Rocky Mountain National Park operates under NPS federal standards, closed containment required within park boundaries, regardless of state law. Arizona. Graywater reuse legislation is permissive for residential fixed structures. Application to vehicles is less clearly codified, but dispersal in state parks and on BLM land with fire restrictions is specifically prohibited. Florida. State-level framework is moderate, but Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties have specific graywater ordinances that catch van lifers who assume the whole state is permissive. Texas. County-level patchwork. Rural Texas is generally low enforcement risk, but Texas Parks and Wildlife Department guidelines at developed campgrounds expect closed containment. Now here's the one rule that overrides everything else on this list: the National Parks Blanket Rule. Every national park in the United States, regardless of state, operates under NPS management policies. Graywater must be disposed of at a designated sanitation facility. No exceptions, no dispersal, no dumping at site. Picture a retired couple from Texas, brand new Class B, first big trip, Yosemite. They're washing dishes at their site, sink running. Graywater drips underneath the chassis because the overflow valve wasn't fully sealed from the factory. Ranger sees moisture under the van during a routine campground pass. They're cited, they're asked to vacate. First trip in their new van. Vacation over. That scenario plays out every season because buyers assumed RVIA certification meant national park compliance. It doesn't. Part 4. Canada and Europe, where it gets expensive fast. Most buyers think the problem ends at the US state level. It gets worse. Canada. Canadian RV standards fall under CSA Z240, the Canadian Standards Association framework. RVIA certification is not automatically recognized as equivalent by all Canadian provincial park systems. British Columbia provincial parks require graywater containment. Some BC parks require proof of CSA-compliant graywater handling on entry, particularly in protected watershed zones. A van that sailed through U.S. national parks can get flagged at a BC park gate. Operates under the Environmental Protection Act. Graywater dispersal is prohibited in provincial parks. Enforcement is active during peat season. Parks Canada federal facilities operate under the same containment logic as U.S. national parks, but under Canadian jurisdiction. Different legal system, same consequence. The practical takeaway: a van certified only to RVIA standards crossing into Canada for an extended tour should carry full documentation of graywater system design and tank capacity. Without it, you're at the discretion of whichever ranger is working the gate that day. Europe. Here's where European buyers need to pay close attention and where American buyers importing or purchasing European spec vans get caught. EN 1949 is the technical standard for motorhomes across the EU. It permits graywater dispersal under specific conditions: distance from water sources, basic filtration, non-protected land. Most European-built campervans are certified to this standard. Sounds reasonable. Now here's where it gets insane. Germany has over 8,000 designated protected nature areas, covering approximately 6% of the country's land area. A van certified to EN 1949 dispersal standards is in violation the moment it disperses graywater inside any of them. Fines, €100 to €500 per incident. Van lifers touring Germany without a map of protected zones get caught regularly. France's low-emission zones and Spain's protected area designations create additional compliance layers near urban and peri-urban camping spots, particularly at AIRS, the designated motorhome stopping areas most European van lifers depend on. And in post-Brexit Britain, graywater dispersal in any national park, any site of special scientific interest, or within 50 meters of any watercourse is prohibited under the environmental permitting regulations. The fines under that framework are not fixed penalty notices, they're variable civil penalties. For a significant water quality incident, they can reach £50,000.
Most enforcement is low risk on a single casual incident, but the legal exposure is real, and buyers who purchase European-spec vans without understanding that their dispersal-capable system is a liability in half the places they plan to travel, those buyers find out the hard way.
Buying tips. Here's the pre-purchase Graywater checklist smart buyers run before they sign anything. 1. Ask for the Graywater tank capacity in writing. Not freshwater, not combined. Graywater specifically. Under 15 gallons on a full build is a constraint that will change how you travel. 2. Ask whether the system has a dispersal valve or release mechanism. If the answer is yes, ask whether it has been physically disabled for your target market. Get it in writing. If the seller can't confirm it in writing, assume the liability transfers to you at signing. 3. Pull the certification documentation. RVIA in the US, EN 1949 in Europe, CSA Z240 in Canada. The paperwork specifies what the system was certified to do. Read the Graywater section. Don't skim it. 4. Inspect the drain fitting physically. A standard US dump station connection is a 3-inch bayonet fitting. If your van has a non-standard fitting, you cannot connect to the majority of US dump stations. That forces dispersal eventually, whether you intend it or not. 5. For used vans, inspect the tank for cracks and the valve for seal integrity. Graywater tanks on chassis-mounted installations take continuous road vibration stress. A hairline crack is a compliance failure before it's a repair bill. Budget $150 to $400 for a pre-purchase habitation inspection that specifically includes Graywater system verification. It is not optional. Buyer mistake. Here is the $15,000 mistake. A buyer purchases a used campervan, good shape, clean title, 50,000 miles, RVIA sticker on the door. They plan a 6-month circuit, California, Oregon, Washington, then up into British Columbia. They don't check the Graywater system type. They assume RVIA means legal everywhere. First citation, California State Park, $350. Graywater valve not meeting closed system standard. The van has a dispersal-capable system the original builder installed for a dual US-EU market spec. The buyer investigates. They need a retrofit. Quote, $3,400. They decide to manage around it. Dump stations only. 3 months in, the Graywater tank develops a stress fracture from road vibration. Tank replacement plus the retrofit they delayed, $5,900. They cross into British Columbia. The provincial park they plan to anchor for 3 weeks requires Graywater compliance documentation on entry. Their paperwork doesn't satisfy the intake process. Redirected to a commercial campground, $47 per night for 21 nights. That's $987 they didn't budget. Then, a ranger at the second BC park issues a formal Graywater violation notice under the BC Parks Act. $750 fine. Vacate within 24 hours. Total cost of one documentation gap, fines, repairs, alternative accommodation, rerouting, $11,400 over 6 months. That is not a hypothetical. That pattern repeats constantly. Buyers who assumed certification covered compliance, it doesn't. A pre-purchase habitation inspection with Graywater system verification costs $300. That's the entire fix. $300 against $11,400. This is where amateurs lose money. Graywater law is deliberately kept confusing. Dealers benefit from buyers not asking questions. Builders benefit from certifying to the minimum standard. In the regulatory patchwork, 50 states, 13 Canadian provinces and territories, 27 EU member states, plus post-Brexit Britain, makes it easy for everyone in the supply chain to say that's not our jurisdiction. But it is your jurisdiction. The moment you park that van, it's your compliance problem. You now have the map. You know which states enforce hard. You know the 3 system types and which one protects you everywhere. You know the certification documents to demand. You know what the $15,000 mistake looks like and exactly how to avoid it for $300. Here's the thing most van buyers never figure out until it's too late.
Most people shop for freedom. Smart buyers shop for legality first, because the fastest way to destroy freedom is buying a van that becomes unusable the moment regulations catch up to it. The van life dream is real, but it runs on compliance, not optimism. Buy the compliance, then buy the van. Drop a comment below. Which state or country on this list surprised you most? I read every one.